We are very excited to discuss mental health. This is a very important topic that we like to highlight every year in our summit. And joining us today is someone that is no stranger to you all, Lori Hartwell. Lori Hartwell is the founder of RSN, also known as Renal Support Network. She suffered from kidney failure at a young age and has been on dialysis for 13 years and is now on her fourth kidney transplant. She is also the amazing author of Chronically Happy, Joyful Living in Spite of Chronic Illness. In 1993 is when she founded the Renal Support Network with the goal of providing peer support, education, and most importantly, hope to her peers. She's very busy. She is the host of Kidney Talk podcast and enjoys sharing her peers' stories of how they have navigated and persevered through this illness. Lori, thank you so much for being here. It is such an honor to have you. And we're going to pass the mic over to you. Can you hear us all right, Lori?
Okay, got it.
There you go. There
Hey
you are.
everyone, it's really good to be here and thank you so much. My husband just stepped outside, so one of my dogs is barking, so my apologies. But mental health is the most important thing you can do when you have an illness. I don't know if you can share my face because I think it's better if people see my expressions. Is that possible?
Yes, please. We have you highlighted here if you want to turn on your camera.
Okay, there we go. Okay, thank you. All right. So, thank you everybody for being here. Thank you for inviting me. This is one of my most important topics is mental health because as a patient who's had kidney failure since age 2, 1968, I had a kidney failure from, they believe, meat not properly cooked, which caused some E. coli complications, which ended up happening at a young age. I had severe high blood pressure. I was on dialysis from age 12 to 24. I was also on for a brief time in 1968 when I was 2 years old. And so I've really been a pioneer in seeing all the evolutions of kidney failure. I had my first transplant at age 13, and this was before they knew anything. They had very difficult drugs, and it just didn't work. And the kidney today's standards would have never worked. So I heard about a new dialysis treatment coming out called peritoneal, and I was the first child to ever start peritoneal in Southern California. And I have to say, PD really helped me live a more normal life, and it made me feel more in control. So after being on hemo in center for a while as a child, I really enjoyed the freedom of being able to do my own treatment. And for me, my diet was a little more liberal. I got a second transplant at age 17. I remember putting a big condemned sign on my cycler, and it started working, and I was so excited. I didn't have to live a life on a machine because I know how challenging that is, and it's really hard to relate to your peers. It's really hard to attend school all the time, and I was really excited about my new life. But things happen. They found some problems with the kidney. It started to cause me to have a bad infection. They also found it with the other donor kidney. And this was in the late 80s, everyone. So I don't want to scare you. They didn't know how to test for a lot of the things they did today. We were really the guinea pigs. So that transplant ended up having to be removed. And I was told at age 17 I would never get a third transplant. I was told that my antibody was way too high. I had had over 150 units of blood before we have medication today that helps raise our anemia. We didn't have it back then. And I just was a teenager. And I think that really helped me because I felt still a little bit indestructible. And of course, as we know, this changes over time. You feel a little more frail as you get older, but when you're young, you have that energy, like nothing's going to get me down. And I think that really helped my survival. At age 24, I got called for a third kidney, and this was after 12 years of dialysis. And it was a challenging transplant. It was a perfect match kidney for me, and it took about 6 months to get it working. And I left the hospital with a creatinine of 2.2, which many of you know is in the beginning stages of needing to go back on dialysis. Like, it's not great to have a 2.2 creatinine, but it can keep you off dialysis, but it's not great post transplant. And I was told that this kidney might last you a few years. And they also told me not to get pregnant because pregnancy is very hard on a kidney. And I was just so excited not to have to be on dialysis. I didn't want to do anything that would mess that up. And I just want to give a little update. That third kidney at 2.2 creatinine lasted 20 years. So I learned pretty early on that some of the things that I hear in statistics aren't always the truth. And then I got my fourth transplant a little over 13 years ago, and this is the best kidney I've ever had. So one of my main motto is to never give up hope. Um, I had this ability early on always to see the brighter side. Not that I can always say that things look bright, but I learned a few things about mental health, and I want to share them with you. When I got my third transplant, I started to really reflect on a lot of my friends that didn't make it, that, it was too challenging for them. They couldn't navigate some of the health consequences. And I think that I just kept telling them, just hang on. It's going to get better. You got to fight. You got to fight with this illness. And, and what I learned is that I myself had suffered a lot from loneliness. I was a young girl, and this illness can be very lonely because you don't feel that. Let me just tell my husband to start my dog barking. uh, Sorry about that. So, uh, so sorry about that. So I think he got the note. Um, so I just learned that my friends were a little upset, and they just couldn't cope. And I knew as a young kid and even into young adulthood, I had the body of like a 12-year-old. I looked really young, but I had the brain of a 40-year-old. So I didn't relate to some of my friends because of the fact that um, I just was dealing with serious health issues and they were dealing with trying to get a date. So we didn't have a lot in common. And I often felt like they were thinking about some of the things that weren't all that important to me. I was trying not to eat the wrong foods or to watch my fluid, and their interests weren't my interests. So it was really challenging to connect with some of my peers. And I also learned that people often just don't know what to say to you when you're sick. So they sometimes just don't say anything, and that's the worst thing. So I learned early on, in addition to dealing with loneliness, I learned that I had to tell people how I wanted to be treated, and I had to tell them what I needed. And this is a great example of this is my husband one time for Christmas bought me a Swiss Army knife. And it was a very thoughtful gift. He thought I was traveling, and this was before 9/11. But I mean, it wasn't really what I wanted. And he thought he was doing he gave me what I wanted, but actually, somebody told me that, people can't read your mind, so you need to tell them what you need. And this was really important for getting my needs met. So to give you an example, when I went to a party or something like that, or I was going to somebody's house, I just asked, say, hey, I'm on a special diet and I have these requirements. Will you have anything there, or can I bring something? And so I set up success of the event I was going to. and it helps me not feel so alone and feel like I couldn't need anything. And it also is a good conversation starter. So I learned to ask for what I need. Um, the other issue that I learned that some of my peers were dealing with, as well as me, is sometimes you just feel a lack of hope. You just don't feel like you have a future. And you've just gotten some horrible news. I've gotten so many diagnoses that were not all that positive. And, you know, a big no no, in my opinion, is not to go to Dr. Google. Dr. Google will depress you. And I've done that. I actually got a diagnosis and I went to Dr. Google, and I was so depressed, my doctor had to pick me up off the floor and tell me that's not your scenario. So it's really important that we don't get wrong information about what's going on with us. Um, I wanted to tell you a little bit why I created RSN, because this is a compilation of maintaining my mental health. Um, I went back to the message of hope, and I really saw people give up because they just didn't want to do this anymore. And I coined the phrase, "An illness is too demanding when you don't have hope." And I started reading the materials out there about from different organizations, and there's a lot of great information. But a lot of times it lacked for me the story that told the success of the person living and thriving with the illness. I wanted it to be, you know, I wanted people to be the hero of their own story, because I felt I was the hero of my own story. I was developing this incredible knowledge base, living in hospitals and helping doctors with research and keeping on top of my labs, that I wanted to share that you can do this too. Um, and so I created RSN with that goal in mind of connecting people through support groups and different activities. I remember early on in '93, I created this directory that I would print and send out, and it shared people's phone numbers, and it, you know, it had to go through legal, and my little friend was a lawyer, and it was one of the, it was a modern day version of Facebook back in 1993. And what I witnessed is we would do support groups and education meetings. And what I realized is that it's really important to connect with another person who has kidney disease, but they have to have something other than kidney disease to really connect with them. I have a lot of friends with kidney disease, but you know, they have a dog. I love animals. They love to create or make jewelry or paint, because I love to do those things. Um, they love to, you know, watch movies or stupid, you know, series on Netflix. And this is some of the things that um, are so important, of connecting with your peers. And but you have to find something that you have in common with them. And that's why through all of our different activities, we try to share people's stories. I do a podcast called Kidney Talk, and I've had the pleasure for over 18 years of hearing patient stories. And they're all on, you know, Apple and iTunes, or whatever the new name of the media platform is. But it's loneliness and understanding your emotions and how to find the tools you need are the three most important things that you can do. And so if you can connect with your peers, it's really helpful. And we have a number of support groups. It's great that this forum has opportunities where you can connect with other people. And I just ask you to go, you know, hang out with somebody, talk to them, and say, hey, you know, what if we share information? Because I found that I've made my best friends just over having lunch. You don't have to have anything formalized. just invite somebody to grab a coffee or something and get to know them. And you may just be their lifeline, and they may just be your lifeline. The next thing I wanted to talk a little bit about, which was never explained to me, was the Kubler-Ross stages of emotions. I don't think I really understood them, but I'm going to go through them real quick. It's shock, denial, fear, anger, depression, grief, and then finally understanding and acceptance. And there's a little bit of bargaining in there. But I want you to really understand those emotions because you can't skip them. You have to go through them. And I recall once I was so angry. I had a fistula, a graft in my arm. They tried a fistula, it didn't work. They put a graft in my arm. The graft was kind of working. And then it infiltrated on dialysis, and I had blood everywhere, all over me. And my arm swelled up like a balloon. I was 23 years old. And my first thought was, how am I going to go out in public? That was my first thought. And my second, I was really angry. I was so angry that this happened to me. And I couldn't understand the emotions. They were so strong. Luckily, I had a friend network around me that said, "You're going to be okay, Lori. It's going to go away." They had to talk me off the ledge. And that's when I really first experienced severe anger. And I learned to use anger as a way to change things for the better, because I don't condone anger of yelling and screaming at people, but I certainly understand when you're at your wit's end and you raise your voice. I certainly understand that. And I've heard a lot from the community that, and I hear this sometimes from social workers and doctors, and they said, "Oh, the patient's angry." And I'm like, well, good. It means they're going through the stages, because you have to be angry to get on to your, shock, denial, fear, anger, depression, and then understanding acceptance. And fear and anger are very, very closely linked. Because a lot of times anger comes from the fear of the unknown, or being afraid of something. So understanding those emotions. I want to just talk a little bit about shock and denial. Shock and denial is a coping strategy that I learned was very important for me, because it's a way of your body and brain saying, "I can't take all this in right now." And so you're kind of in a daze, and you're like, "Did that really happen? Did that really happen?" and because you're trying to process it. So you have to talk to other people is the best way to come to terms. And when you're in shock and denial, it's okay. It's part of the process. And just realize that this is the stages of the human experience, I like to say. After anger and depression, after shock, denial, fear, anger, and then we move into depression. Depression is rampant. And I can go in and out of depression in a little while. It can be long term. My doctor calls it situation depression, when I'm going through a really challenging time and having to see a lot of doctors and having to wait. One of the things that makes me depressed is I got a lot to do, and I have to wait in a waiting room. And I start to think, well, if my time's not important, I might not be important, because I have this little committee in my head, that this little group of people who just like to talk to me and make me more upset. And I've had to learn how to try to get my mind off of that committee and how to quiet them. But they're definitely, this illness is challenging, and I ask everybody, if you are suffering from depression, to please ask for help. It is more common than you think, and it's actually, kidney disease is quite challenging. So I'm always worried about people who just say, "I'm fine" all the time. I have some friends, I'm fine, I'm fine. I'm like, what's really going on? And then they tell me. And so it's okay to say that you have these emotions. And then you move on to understanding and acceptance. And these stages can happen in an hour, a week, a month, a year. They can happen really quickly. So it's very important to understand these emotions and talk about them. And talk to your family. Say, look, I'm really angry right now and I don't have anything against you. I'm short-tempered right now. I'm not feeling good. And just explain how you're feeling, because miscommunication can happen really fast. And if you can communicate what you need and tell them what you're going through, it'll make your life easier. The next thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is some of my coping strategies. So I learned early on too, is you got to know what you need before you need it. And these are some things that I do to help when I don't feel so wonderful. One thing I don't do is I don't turn on the news. The news is not going to make you feel better. So if you're having a bad day, just don't turn on the news. Turn on I Love Lucy or something that makes you laugh. Turn on music. Turn on something else. Listen to an audiobook, anything, but it will not make you feel better. I guarantee you it. It'll make you feel more frustrated, because I found for me a lot of my depression came from not feeling like I was in control. And so, or my sadness or anger. And so, whenever I start to feel depressed, I start to learn why. And if I'm dealing with a medical issue or something, I start to learn all I can about it. And it tells me my options. So it's a really good tool to utilize, because it's a cliche, but it's not. Knowledge is power. And knowledge is power because of the fact that the more you know, the more control you have, the more hope you have, and the more you can advocate for yourself. And living with this illness for 56 years, I can't even say believe I'm saying that. I just turned 58, and I proudly share my age with everyone, because statistics show those who have the most birthdays live the longest. And there's one thing that makes me very upset is when people complain about having a birthday, because I have had friends that would have done anything for those birthdays. The next coping skill that I developed is love I'm very creative. I love to explore my creativity. I love to paint. I just started painting when I was 50. I just started picking up a paintbrush and painting. And people are like, oh my goodness, you're really good. And I'm like, I just do what I feel, because painting's emotional. And I have 50 years of really challenging, tortured emotions that I can let her rip on the screen or on the canvas. So, uh, you know, I've also dabbled in collage. One of the things that I love to do is just find old magazines and cut out pictures and then start arranging them on a piece of paper or on a board and get some Mod Podge. It's a very inexpensive way to express your creativity. I got into jewelry, like making beads, necklaces and stuff, a little over almost 15 years ago. And I dabbled a little bit in jewelry all of my life, but I really started to say, I'm going to develop my skills. And what's so wonderful about today is, in the olden days, you had to go take a class or go buy a book. All you have to do is search on YouTube and you can learn absolutely anything you want to learn. And this is a game changer for us, because I know that after I make something, I feel better. If I cook something, if I cook a meal, it's very important to express your creativity. And there was a study many years ago, and I'm going to kind of just tell you the brief version of this story. but it was a woman who was a hand surgeon who was married to a psychologist. And they said that using your hands is connected to your emotional well-being. So, our ancestors used to make bread and weave baskets, and, we used to use our hands a lot, but the computer is preventing us from using the hands the way they were meant to live. We're not supposed to type all the time. And so I encourage you to find something, if it's knitting or yarn or whatever sculpting. They have these really cool paper clay sculpting. And RSN has a Get Creative group once a month that we meet, and we share all these ideas because I think art and creativity is not utilized enough. Music, anything that you can do to express your creativity is a positive. And I also learned that I need to have my art projects out. I have to have something out on a table that I'm working on. I can't expect myself to bring something out when I don't feel good. So that's really important. And I recall when I had my fourth transplant, I just want to tell you it was extremely hard. I had 100% antibodies. I had to have a lot of treatment, and it was really scary going up to my fourth transplant because of the fact that I don't have any accesses left. They pretty much ruined me when I was younger, due to, I don't think I met some of the skilled vascular surgeons, and techniques are better today, but it's one of the most emotional challenges of kidney disease and kidney failure is the vascular access. And it was really a tough time, and my transplant was kind of iffy. And so people were coming to see me, and I didn't like their face. I didn't like their face when they walked in because they just looked at me and they felt a little sad at times because they knew my odds were against me. So I decided to change the conversation when they came in the house. And I got into buttons. My friend got me into buttons. I started collecting buttons. I started looking at buttons. That's what I needed at the time. But I put a bunch of buttons on the table in our living room. And immediately when people came in to visit me, they started playing with the buttons. And then the conversation became more of what I felt I needed, and more about hearing about their lives, and more of just being treated as somebody who's a friend of theirs instead of somebody who's been diagnosed and has not a great outcome. And so I'm into buttons, and I wrote an article called Buttons Are Helping Me Keep It Together, because at the time it was helping me keep it together. And finally, another coping skill that I use. Oh, and I just want to mention writing. Writing is a very powerful tool if you don't even share it with anybody. You write it, you get it out, you throw it away. And I'm very proud because RSN just launched we're going to announce the winners probably next week of our 22nd annual essay contest. And if you are ever not feeling well, we have over 22 years posted on our website of inspiring stories, because I'm inspired by my peers' stories. And that's what helps me, listening to them on the podcast or reading them. And it's so important because it tells me that I can do this too. Uh, I invite you all to help me in the next message, and that's of pets. If I didn't have a little black poodle from age 10 to 28, I don't think I'd be here. My little black poodle gave me the will to live on many occasions. He got me out of bed to walk. Animals are really incredibly healing. And sadly, we see a lot of posts on our different threads that my doctor told me I can't have any animals. I need to get rid of my animals. Just cut my arm off. That's what you're telling me. What if you would tell me to get rid of my animals? And the CDC has recommendations. You can keep your pets, and you need to know what's safe and what's how to handle them. We have a lot of podcasts on this topic, but help help us tell other people, because people post and say my doctor, and doctors are practicing medicine. I want everybody to know that they're practicing, and they're practice based on their own beliefs and values. And sadly, I've encountered some doctors that don't always value animals the way I do. I mean, they're like my children, and they're very important to me. So, do your due diligence, understand, and you can also, you can't afford to have an animal, and or you don't have the lifestyle for an animal. My husband and I started a pet rescue 3.5 years ago, and he's retired now, and that's what he does. And we have a few dogs running around here. We have our dogs, and people are always telling me, "Well, you ever get hurt by a dog or whatever?" And it's so funny because I have never ever went to the hospital for something normal. It's always something related to kidney disease. So, we love this. I get to meet a lot of people who have a dog, that want a dog, and I've now met a whole new group of people that I call them my tribe. I love people who love animals, because animals are just a gift, and they are so, the studies are out that animal therapy, art therapy, these are all very, very uh, good strategies for dealing with coping with your illness. So I think to wrap up, I think, check out rsnhope.org. That's our website. You can sign up. Everything we have is at no charge. And we also have a patient meeting coming up in October. It's a 5-day Hope Week, and each day focus on a different stage of the illness. And we have a lot of support groups and different type of dating with kidney disease, and things that are more lifestyle issues, because the lifestyle drives the healthcare, I believe. Um, Also, one of my signature programs, and I just want to wrap up with this, is I mentioned that I spent age 12 to 24 on dialysis. And from age 12 to 24, I it was a really challenging time. I didn't hardly go to school. I had home teachers. And then when I got my third transplant, I thought, how do I connect with my younger peers? How can I help them know that they're not alone? So I started throwing a prom for my team, my younger peers. And I'm happy to report that I just hosted my 25th prom. I've been hosting a prom for 25 years. And so and I see that it's really amazing. It's never too late to be a prom queen, everyone. I want you to know that I'm the queen of proms. I've had Jack Black, I've had Nick Jonas, I've had, Mayan Lopez is a friend of ours, if you watch Lopez versus Lopez. And it's just a wonderful thing, because I've had 25 years of people who have had kidney disease, and I share their stories and their sorrows, and they call us and tell us when they have problems, and we help them get places. And my final statement before I close, because you're welcome to message me, but I'm going to give you the secret to happiness. And this is a Confucius saying, and it goes like this: if you want to be happy for a day, for an hour, take a nap. If you want to be happy for a week, go fishing, or in my case, go shopping. If you want to be happy for a month, get married to the wrong person. If you want to be happy for a year, inherit a fortune. But if you want to be happy for the rest of your life, it's very simple. You help someone else. And this is the most important thing, is to reach out and help other people, and in turn you are helping yourself. So with that, I thank you for your attention. Join us at rsnhope.org, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Lori, thank you so much for all that amazing information. You have some fans, let me tell you. You can't see it, all the hearts and hand claps, and people in the chat are just so appreciative for all the amazing information that you've shared and sharing your own personal experiences. Um, a few other comments that have come through about the pets. Some people have been having conversations with providers or patients about it being okay to have pets and the importance of having pets. So definitely echoing your sentiments there. We do have a few questions here for you today. And I know you talked a little bit about prom, but one of the questions that I love this, what behavior health advice would you give the teenage you? And do you have any current pediatric ESRD resources for mental health?
Um, well, we do have some podcasts. We have a panel that we're doing with kids and parents on October 9th. We also, there was a book that we have called Kidney Kids that was written by a young girl who was 16 or 17, and she wrote it for her younger brother. And we have that book online, and it's absolutely amazing to kind of share the information. But what I've learned with pediatric and youth is that you need to just create environments where they can get to know each other and create friendships. Because if you're closed off and you don't know somebody your own age that has the illness because you feel nobody understands. So, that's why we do the prom and we love it so much. We do dress days, we do all kinds of things before them to try to get young adults involved. This last year, we tried something different, and I invited all the alumni back that had attended for 25 years, just because it was the 25th year. And it was really magical because, somebody who was 17, 18 got to see Michael, who was 35, who was married and had kids. And I think one of the really important aspects of this is they need to know that they have a future. And I was one of those people who had no expectations of me. They didn't think I would live. And I'm somebody who's stubborn and I'll say, I'll show you. But I think a lot of times having expectations of people is one of the most important things you can give somebody. And, are they dating? I mean, nobody ever asked me if I had a date because they didn't think I was worthy of a date when I was 19 because I was on dialysis. I mean, the best thing you can do is ask somebody, who are you dating? Are you going to college? Or, nobody ever talked to me about retirement because I was a kid. I could retire one day. Somebody who has kidney disease since 1968 might be able to retire. I mean, that's kind of inspiring. It's kind of scary too. Time goes by fast, but um, these conversations should be had with everybody. Nobody's promised tomorrow, and we just don't know. So I think expectations are the number one things you can give a young adult with kidney disease.
I love that. Thank you so much for that perspective. Some more folks, just so happy that you are here. I'm going to share the RSN website as well as the contact information. We encourage you to check out her website. I know she's discussed some of the events coming up, the essay contest, the prom, but there is a wealth of knowledge on her RSN website. There is a regular newsletter that goes out, and she touches on all aspects of ESRD. So I really encourage you all to sign up for her newsletter to have regular updates from her. And I'm going to check one more time for any additional questions here, Lori.
Well, I just wanted to mention too that we created a nutritional calculator that's not an app, and it's on our website, and it's just for basic food because we found a lot of family members just wanted to cook for somebody but didn't know anything about food. So food is a very enjoying thing, and you need to learn, and your family needs to learn. Do it as a challenge. I tell all healthcare professionals, you guys should go try to cook a renal diet for a week. We all should try it, because then it becomes more secondhand when people ask you what they can eat. And so, because there are a lot of things we can eat, and I always use the perspective of being the glass half full because I'm like, I have to trick my mind like this. I'm like, you know what? I can't eat everything I want, but I don't want for food. There's other parts of this country that they don't have anything to eat. And those are some mental tricks I play. Like I still have food. I just can't have all the food I want. And so it's very you learn to play these mind games. We also have on our website a lot of the different podcasts and stuff about animal safety. Even an infectious disease specialist talks about what to be worried about if you have an animal and what you need to look for. So please save the pets. My personal message.
I love that. We have someone, Michelle, in the chat wrote that she loves the idea of trying to cook a renal diet for a week, and she's going to challenge her team to do that. Love that. What a great activity to have at your clinic. Challenge the staff.
That's bravo. Let me know how it goes. Maybe we'll do a podcast.
The last question that came through, Lori, was just any other resources that you have for mental health. I know you've shared some of your tips and tricks, but where you refer others.
Well, I think all the different organizations have different activities. Just get involved, participate, show up. Don't show up one time and think that you're going to have your immediate needs. You've got to be part, it's a team. And all of us nonprofits are small and struggling, and, it's hard. It's hard to, but you can go to a walk. I mean, NKF has a walk. You can go do a walk. You'll meet other people. In your clinic, I actually organized the picnic. You can be the one that creates the event. And I always tell this is like support groups are so, large. We did actually a support group masterclass on our website to teach other people how to do support groups, because they're challenging. And you have to have a very strong leader with a support group, or they don't last. They become, excuse my French, bitch groups, and it doesn't turn out positive because there's so much grief with this disease. A lot of people come with crisis, so you have to balance it. But I think the best thing a healthcare professional can do for a patient is say, Tommy, I think, you're sitting there, you guys should have lunch sometime. The healthcare professionals know us better than anybody. And if you can help pair us up in a not formalized way, just saying, hey, I thought you guys had something in common. Maybe you guys want to have lunch or have coffee, and maybe they'll prompt it to go create their own friendship or have coffee and never talk to each other. But those connections, because people don't know how to reach out anymore. COVID did a lot of damage to us, and it prevented us from seeking other people, because we are human and we need connection. So I just want to encourage you to try that. And then all the different groups have different activities, and join in, get involved. I mean, some groups have fly-ins to DC. I mean, that can be fun for people to get to know each other, and then make sure to follow up. Don't just let too much time goes by. A good friendship is worth its weight in gold, and it takes time to develop those.
I love that. Thank you, Lori. Well, those are all the questions we have. And with that, we just appreciate your time and your willingness to share your story. It is such a pleasure to have you on. We will certainly keep track of the chat if any other questions come through, but reminder to everyone, please check out Lori's website. It's rsnhope.org. We will share that in our post-event slides as well. Lori, thank you for being here, and we look forward
Thank
to
you,
working with you
Emma.
again.
Everyone stay chronically happy, and sometimes it involves being chronically happy. Damn it, takes a little anger to be happy. So live the life you were meant to live, and don't let this illness get in the way.